Oh, dude, I've been typing forever. It doesn't matter. I have weird fingers. I'm the king of typos. Yeah, pretty much. That's why I'm not a web designer. Oh, dude, we were talking about exactly how bullshit it is, but yeah. No, you're good. If you want it to be. Alright, guys, we are. I am ready to start.
We're ready to start too, so we all.
I'm kind of worried about this, Jameson. I think I'll be checking Discord from my phone tonight.
Okay.
You can just set that up.
Sorry, I'm on.
Yes, please let me know if there's anybody who's talking in there, like, wants a question answered, because I think it'll be hard to kind of look at it all at the same time. But whatever. Yeah, I know. Trolls. Alright, hello everybody, my name is Master Chen, and as you can see behind me and around me, yeah, nobody's here because everybody's celebrating the holidays without me, but I'm still here. So this is episode 225 of Greynoise, the podcast that you are definitely either watching or listening to. It is Friday night at 7:30, so we are live at the SYN shop. The address is 1075 American Pacific Drive, Suite C in Henderson, Nevada. We are still the Las Vegas Valley Hackerspace. Go to synshop.org for more information on us as a hackerspace. And for information on the classes that we teach and the stuff that we do here, go to meetup.com/synshop. Remember, that is SYNSHOP. And then you could add a .org to that if you need to. And for information on us as a podcast, or yes, us as a podcast, go to Greynoise, GREYNOI.se. As you may have noticed, we've been dark for the last two weeks, and that's because the holidays are a very difficult time. You know, people have Christmas parties to go to, people have family in town, or things to do. So it's hard to kind of like get everybody together and go from there. But hey, the show must go on, so we are here. I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe that next week we will have a full cast. I'm hoping. That is exactly what I'm hoping for. So, in any case, let's get started. So, one thing I wanted to mention about the SYN shop too is, of course, they've been a home to Greynoise for a very long time now. For those who don't know, and by the way, I'm not going to do the Decade in Review episode until next week, because if I time it right, that would be perfect, right? But we've been doing the podcast since 2014, the end of 2014, and we only started to hang out at the SYN shop when it was downtown and now here since about the early 2015 timeframe. So I'd like to take this moment to shout them out as a sponsor. They've been with us for a long time, and they've been part of us for a long time, and we've been part of them for a long time as well. So if you are here live in the audience, we have the GRU in the back of the shop there. So if you could, please donate. Put $1 in the. I sound like a preacher already. Put $1 in the box. But seriously, if you can, put $1, $5 back there in the GRU. It does go a long way. SYN shop is actually a 501c3. If you didn't know that. You can donate. We've had people who donate equipment. They've donated relative amounts. I don't want to say large. No, not relatives. We do have a live audience. I'm actually very happy that there are people live here. No, but we've. I don't want to say big, large sums of money. But we've had people donate certain denominations of money. So if you feel like you want to donate, please do so. It is tax deductible. We can write receipts for you, etc., etc. So please, if you can, donate to SYN shop. Wonderful makerspace, wonderful hackerspace. We actually have somebody new in the audience who is from Noisebridge out in San Francisco. Shout out there. So it's good to, I mean, you know, hackerspaces are a network. It's a network. And by the way, for those who don't know, the way I found SYN Shop is I have a person here, I have a friend here who I would see once a year at DEF CON. And then one year I said, oh man, I can't believe it's over. You know, it's I gotta wait a whole nother year. And he said, well, no, you don't. You just go to SYN Shop and like it's like a whole hacker space or like a conference all year round. And that's how I found this place. And so I do highly recommend coming down here again, being a part of something, being a part of this, and donating if you can. So that's a big announcement or sponsor. I don't even know if SYN Shop could be officially a sponsor. It wasn't voted on or anything, but I'm going to say it anyway. Also, Chenbox. Chenbox.net is another sponsor, and for those who don't know, that's actually my company. It is my LLC. I do teach children how to code. Hashtag learn to code, if that doesn't get us banned or anything. But yes, I do teach kids how to write software, predominantly Python. I have a few students now, and you know, if you're interested in that, I do house calls, basically. I do house calls and also Skype type of classes. And so just because you're not in Vegas doesn't mean that you can't participate in me being your teacher. So I think those are all the sponsorships at the moment. I did make show notes. I'll get to that in a second. So the first thing I want to talk about is what I would call the social engineering minute. It's actually an idea that I've had for a while, and I've kind of sprinkled it in the podcast every now and then. But today's topic for the social engineering minute is shifting of accountability. And for those of you who are in the live audience, we talked about it earlier today. So I've talked about how to get the easiest way to get correct information on the internet is to provide wrong information because somebody will correct you, somebody will tell you that you're wrong and while you're wrong, and they will take the liberty of providing the correct information. Okay, so the best way to get good information, or at least correct information, quote unquote, is to provide wrong information because they will correct you very quickly. I would say in less than 30 seconds flat, whatever the ping time is. Okay, so nobody got that joke. Got it. I don't know how many. Yeah, you got it, but you didn't laugh. I don't know how many networking people we have in here. I don't know. I don't care. Okay, 3 millisecond. I don't know. I'm talking about human interaction. Right. So tonight's social engineering minute was actually we're talking about shifting accountability. And what I mean by that is when I was a martial arts instructor, you know, to get students, we would have to hand out passes and say, hey, you should try out this free class. You should do this, you know, come on down. We'll teach you a free class, etc. So we were handing out flyers and packets. Now, when I was, me as a person, when I was trying to give an individual the pass or the flyer or the information, it was easily rejected. I mean, easily rejected. You know, like, no, we don't need it. We're not interested, etc., etc. But what I found was that if I shift the accountability, they were less inclined to reject me, and at the very least, at least take the flyer, or at least take the pamphlet or quote-unquote propaganda that I had in my hand. So I would say, hey, you know, I don't know you, but I was told to give this to you, which wasn't wrong. It wasn't wrong because, you know, my instructor or the person that I was advertising for was the one who said, hey, go hand out passes or go hand out flyers. So technically, I wasn't lying, but it was very easy in that sense to not be rejected. You know, it's harder for people, at least that's what I've learned, for people to reject an accountability that's kind of been shifted, right? So when I would say, hey, I was told to give this to you, or I was asked to give this to you, people would kind of look at me sideways and say, okay, but they take the flyer, they take the pass, and then it was off my hands. Oh, well, now, really quick, if you're in the audience, nobody on the live stream can hear you unless you go up to the community mic. Now, if you're on the community mic, you don't have to be on camera. Please let me know if you don't want to be on camera, and we won't put you on camera. But otherwise, ain't nobody can hear you. So, but yes, I do encourage anybody to come up here and join in the conversation. Also, if you're not in the live stream, you should be. That is actually an announcement that I forgot. So, we do have a SYN Shop Discord, and we have a Greynoise Media Discord, so you can go to either of them to join into the conversation. Right now, we are in the live stream channel on the Greynoise server. If you want to talk, ask questions, I'll try to kind of jump in there periodically. Might be a little difficult as a solo show, but we'll see if I can. Oh, by the way, I missed. Did I miss the opportunity yet? Okay, so I know you don't even know what I'm talking about. So, okay, for those of you who don't know, Star Wars has been released this weekend, right? And I'm sure that's probably where I was not invited to. I wasn't invited to a pre-screening, or not pre-screening, but a screening. Hey, we got some people here. Awesome, welcome. So, because I'm the only one on here, I'd like to call this the Chen solo episode. Did I get any groans on that one? No? All right, well, thank you for that. Oh, thank you. By the way, would you like to be on community mic or not?
Sure. Camera.
On camera, yes, community mic. Sorry. Whoop. Community mic, go ahead.
Don't you mean Chin Solo 2, The Return of More Chin?
Yes, I guess. By the way, I just realized that I have my volume down. So I'm going to have to repeat the first 10 minutes of the episode. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of. But yes, you're in the middle of Greynoise. Oh, this is a great way to start. Thank you for that, community mic. No, I don't think it's the second coming of Chen. I didn't mean to compare myself to Jesus. Anyway, all right. I know. Here we go. Yes. So, not that it's an excuse, but for those of you who are wondering, I am on a couple of glasses of wine, so maybe that could explain a few things. So, no, but the main. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about accountability and shifting accountability for social engineering in the social engineering minute. Now, what I'd like to transition to though is we actually have some people in the audience who are just now getting into cybersecurity or information security or any type of hashtag or buzzword that you'd like to get into, but it's very important, which is just improving your skill, right? Improving your skill. How do you do that? And actually, this is a very good time to kind of discuss it or talk about it because, again, this is not the end of the year episode. This is not the end of the decade episode. That's next week. But let's go ahead and talk about that for a little bit because I actually do get asked quite often, how did you get started? What should I do? Should I install Kali Linux? Should I read these books? Should I do this and that? And the answer to that is yes, do all of it. It depends really on what you want to do, right? It depends on what you want to focus on. It depends on where you want to specialize. And the thing about hacking is that it is such a broad term, okay? Like it's such a broad term that it's really hard for you to really say that you should go down this way or that way. You will end up specializing. You almost have no choice because there's just so much shit you could do in this space, right? You can be really good at making, which some people would argue is a form of hacking. You know, lock picking and lock sport has all of its own things and tunnels and valleys about it. You know, you have people who go down into web application security. You have people who go into network security specifically and how to hack packets and sniff traffic. I mean, that's a whole nother study on its own. So when people say, what if I just ask, or like when they ask, well, how do I get started? Teach me how to hack. How do I hack? It's a very, I don't want to say it's a difficult question to answer, but it's a very broad thing to address. It really is. I mean, like, I think back to like when I first started, quote unquote, hacking. Like, how did I start, right? Well, my dad was a computer programmer, right? We had what was it? It was like a compact Presario. No, before the compact Presario, it was a Tandy 1000, I believe, from Radio Shack. Yeah, exactly. It was like it was like a version. It was a Windows 3.11 because it had connectivity, and I had to not argue, but I had to debate with my parents about the benefits of having an internet connection because they didn't know what it was. Like I said, my dad was a programmer. He kind of knew what it was, but not the benefit of having it in the house. It was a business tool, right? And so that was about how old am I? That was like a while ago. So I was about 10 years old, right? So how do you convince somebody to provide you with a service that lets you connect to everybody in the world? I mean, these are the, and again, I'm just thinking retrospectively, like, how did I start, right? How did this all kind of start? And of course, we could say that it started with curiosity. We could say that it started with a couple of pieces of equipment that I had and I could take apart and put back together. By the way, though, I was never really a hardware person. So take that for what it's worth. But you start with something. You start with something that leads to something else. So maybe you take apart the hardware and you realize that in order to get this hardware to work, certain types of instruction sets need to be added to this hardware, such as firmware or software or whatnot. And nowadays, kids these days. They have Arduino, but it wasn't maybe that easy, And we can talk about all of this, but how do we transition from knowing this piece of technology to that piece of technology? So, I started with Windows 3.11. I didn't get internet connectivity until Windows 95. And that was where you had a dial-up modem. And I mean, there are kids these days. Kids these days. There are kids these days who don't know the sound of like a dial-up modem. Exactly. Everybody's here kind of like agreeing, right? But there are people who don't know that sound because they've only been known to have. They only know what broadband is. So it's different. Times have changed. But in any case, what I'm trying to say here is that it won't take you a decade to be good at something, but you'll be surprised at how a decade can change you, right? How a decade can change you. So, for instance, like I said, I had Windows 95, and I was about 10 years old, so we'll say that this was like right around 1996, if that's accurate, okay? I'll slowly dox myself. Now that the wine is done, I'll take a sip of this Jameson. Oh, that was great. Oh, here we go. I mean, this is exactly what everybody at home was expecting. Drunkle Chen. But if we think back to the timeline, right? Okay, so a decade, right? I said I started hacking when I was 10 years old. We'll call that 1996. Windows 95 was out, okay? And then we go a decade from there, right, to 2006. I mean, think about how much has changed in that time frame, right? The iPhone hasn't come out yet, but we do have quote-unquote smartphones where maybe we're hacking on a Palm Trio or a Palm Clio or whatever the fuck it was called. I know it was the Trio, but wasn't there one before? Okay, the Palm Pilot, whatever the fuck, with the handspring visor.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, Palm Pilot had their own thing, right? Palm Trio, or was that acquired? We got somebody coming up to the community mic. Yay! Would you like to be on camera or no?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. Community mic.
So, we were kind of talking about it. If I remember correctly, so everybody had the Palm Pilot. That was like the pocket organizer.
Right.
So you could organize your stuff. Then there was Handspring, which came along. I think they were a competitor, but they were still running Palm OS. But they were the first ones who actually had a phone integrated into the device.
Like with a big ass antenna and everything, right?
No, it was almost like a little backpack. It would like clip into the PCMCA device.
Really? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Remember PCMCA?
No, I remember that. I remember that protocol,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Protocol?
Well, I mean the hardware slot. The hardware slot, yeah. Yeah.
So you'd stick that into the back of the phone because that was the big difference between the Palm and the Handspring was the Handspring was expandable and had more options.
Right.
So I think like even like early 2000s, you could actually get 2 to 11 cards.
Wow.
So, and that's like bleeding edge stuff. That's when like a Wi-Fi card was like a couple $100.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, now this is just becoming like a reminiscing episode, right?
Yeah. Now I really feel old.
Yeah.
Especially because it's like you're talking about like 1996 to 2006. It's like I think at that point like some microsystems had been bought by Oracle and
Right.
essentially been flushed down the toilet. SGI was on its way down. Like all these like really cool high-end computing infrastructures that were like just kind of pivotal to like the late 90s, early 2000s gone. So I mean that's kind of talk about like what changes in a decade. That's kind of
See, and that's actually a very good point to bring up is companies will rise, companies will fall, companies will merge. I mean, all this happens in a decade, and it's very interesting to watch and observe. So thank you for that. So, so kind of to piggyback off of that a little bit, the question is like how much. Okay, I'm not trying to spoil next week because next week really is when I hope I have my friends back and we talk about the whole decade, right? But the question really is, what is the difference that a decade makes, right? You can become really good at something in a decade or less, way less, if you really put your mind to it, and that sounds so cliche, but if you really concentrate on it, if you really focus in on a subject or a particular subject matter or a particular area of interest, right? You can really focus on it and become really good. One of my martial arts instructors said, how long will it take you to get black belt? Well, that completely depends on you. It could take you 2 years. It could take you 12. It could take you whatever it is. It depends on how many times you go to practice. It depends on how much time you're focusing on this particular area of study, right? So if you want to become an expert in web application security, study it. If you want to become an expert at Cisco systems and how those physical systems, it's the whiskey, I promise, are put together, then study that. But it's really hard for any of these hackers here who are with me to say, this is how you hack. This is from step A to step B to step 3. Community Mike.
Can you define what you mean by study? Because if you're not somebody who works with this sort of stuff, they might be thinking, oh, well, go to school and study. What do you mean by study?
You know what? You actually bring up a very good point. Thank you very much for that. So studying in the conventional sense, I think might be lost on you here in this realm, right? Because hacking is a lot about self-study, okay? So you don't go to school and say, I'm going to get a degree in hacking. There really is no such thing. No, not in this country, right? No, but I mean, like, I had a joke about it at B-Sides Las Vegas Hacker Stand-Up, which is there's a big difference between InfoSec community and hacking community, right? InfoSec people are so into compliance and certification, et cetera, and hacking is just like, hey, can I fuck with this thing? Like, is this something that I can mess with, right? That's pretty much what it kind of boils down to. Exactly, or I'll find a way, absolutely. And so to go back to it, what do we mean by self-study? Or what do we mean by study, sorry? I don't think, maybe this can be debated with you guys here, but when we say study, do we mean like just go off and, like Doxy would say, RTFM and then just go from there? Do we mean reverse engineering? Do we mean picking up something, breaking it, and building it up again? What do we mean by study? We definitely don't mean the academic sort of way that we mean studying, because usually when it comes to hacking, there will be no teacher in front of a classroom to tell you, do this, do this, do this, do this. So what do we mean when we say study? That is a very good question. I would say it's 99% self-study, something that you have to kind of do on your own. It's your own path. But let's find out. Community Mike.
In California, there's a couple ways to become a lawyer. You can go to a bar-recognized college and JS, go and study for the bar and then pass the bar.
What's the JS? Is that Juris?
JD, I'm sorry.
JD, Juris Doctorate, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's also the concept of reading the law. And that's where you go and practice law under an attorney. Not as an attorney, but as
like a paralegal?
It's not paralegal either. It's where you go in and you work with the attorney. Not as paralegal, but somebody who is in the process of becoming a lawyer. And after a period of time, you can go take the bar. Now, in Nevada, you can't do that, but in California, you can. So fundamentally, what they're trying to say by reading the law is that you work with the materials, whether it be if you want to be a hacker, let's say a software hacker, you work with the code and you generate stuff, make mistakes, you learn how to recover from mistakes. If you're an electronics hacker, you would be somebody who goes out and learns how to troubleshoot by doing approach. Oh, well, gee, I don't have power here. How do I measure power? Oh, I use a voltmeter. How do I do troubleshooting? And so it's the learning process that you go through. So I think when you say study, you're really talking about the evolutionary learning process of figuring out in your own way how to do something or how not to do something.
So very much experimental, like
yes,
experimenting. I mean, so probably like an old adage, we could call Benjamin Franklin a hacker. We can call Tesla a hacker because they figure out through experimentation and just, let's see, what won't kill me at least will shock me pretty hard.
Yeah, that's a way to think of it, because it's a way of thinking about the problem. and figuring out not the problem itself, but the process of solving the problem. And I think that's the fundamental difference between study, which is where you follow an established methodology for learning something. They set out learning objectives. You learn those objectives. You're now studying the subject. Whereas and I won't say hacking, but just learning by your own self, you're learning how to learn. And that's the fundamental key that I think you're trying to get across is that you're not studying the subject, you're learning how to learn the subject or multiple subjects.
Right, I actually agree with you here because I don't know if it was just this year or maybe the year before, but like I've heard the term learning how to learn quite frequently in the recent past, right? And it's I would say it's an accurate way to describe it. It's like, so do we just throw out the term study altogether in this realm?
I think that study has its place in learning how to learn because part of learning is going out and looking at what other people are doing. So, if you're like an apprentice, they go and they watch the master work the metal or, work the loom, and then they practice it. So in education, you go out and read the material so you can gain experience on understanding how to do it. So I think studying is more of a structured methodology that is laid out by someone for achieving a specific objective. Whereas in the sense of hacking, it's the process of learning how to solve problems and learning how to learn.
Right. Yeah, I can see that as a clear distinction. We still have another community mic. Before I push this button, do you mind being on camera? Oh, okay, let's. Oh, come on, you've been on camera forever. Sorry, never mind. Anyway, okay, we still have community mic, but he does not want to be named or sorry, seen. Community mic.
Hey.
What up?
They don't want to be named.
What do you mean they? Oh, sorry, they.
Use the correct pronoun.
Are you kidding me? I'm not going to get into that, but go ahead and explain your case.
So some people like to learn, different people like to learn different ways. Some people like to go to school, and they like to have that structure of going to school and learning from the professor or whoever's in front of the class teaching. Some people, like me, prefer to learn in a self-study mode.
Can you distinguish those as hackers and not hackers?
Yeah, I would say the person that likes to go to a class and sit there and listen to the teacher, I would say is less of a hacker type. I'm more of a hacker type where I get in and I maybe watch a couple videos and start playing around with stuff.
And just see what you can get into,
and just see what I can learn. And then maybe I'll go take a course at a Code Academy or something like that. And then maybe learn some of the fundamental stuff that I didn't learn by hacking around.
That's fair. Okay, so then a next question that I want to pose to you and maybe others who want to comment on this is, with that said, do you think in order to quote-unquote survive in the next decade, you'd have to take on more of a hacker mentality in general, not just for hackers, but for anybody who's wanting to learn? We have a lot of online schools now. I would say the day of the auditorium professor might be dying. Is that something that you'd have to take on whether or not you're a hacker?
Personally, I'm biased. I think yes is the answer. You have to take on that, but some people are just lazy. They may work, you could say, doing web development, and they don't take any effort. They don't put any initiative into learning how to make themselves better at their job. They just go in from 9 to 5 and they clock in and out, and then they go home and they watch TV.
That's fair. I mean, I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah.
Good point. So we have another community mic. Now we got people who are lining up. This is great because it means I don't have to talk so much. Community mic.
So, I don't know if I'm on camera. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I was kind of thinking.
Yar.
One of the things we kind of hit on a little bit was we were kind of talking about the differential between study and hacking.
Okay.
The thing about it is that studying doesn't necessarily always involve a book. Like, I can be studying the behavior of something directly, direct observation of something, and that turns into becomes one of those things where it's like that's how I'm learning about how something is. So kind of a intuitive model that kind of comes up is exactly that, an intuitive model. You say, I have this model about how things work. Like, this goes in here, this comes out there, and if I do this with the input, it comes out that side.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is you have this mental model of how this thing, whatever it is, works. And something different. So now you have to sit down, do some more study, and figure out what went wrong, at which point you can then update your model. Because the thing about it is that a lot of things we don't really think about it, but we always have like intuitive models. And when we're building experiences, that experience creates intuition. So that says, I've seen that before. This is what it's doing. So that is the learning process.
Yeah, I agree. I have nothing to debate at the moment because this is kind of straightforward here. No, so I agree. Thank you very much for that input. So before we go on to the next community mic, which we will, again, I just want to point out, I'm just asking questions. So I really want to say thank you to everybody who's kind of coming up and having this discussion with me. So let's have more community mic.
You mentioned in the next decade, what would be the impact?
Right, so from 2020 to 2019. Sorry,
2029.
2030. Jesus fucking Christ! Sorry,
No.
that's
like the future, right? Like,
yeah, and like 1998 happened like what 5 years ago, right?
Welcome to the future.
I know, right?
Welcome to the mic.
Yeah,
Yes.
zombies in 5 years.
Let's hope so.
I kind of do, just so I can see if I can survive or not.
Yeah, it's those games you play.
Exactly. Go ahead.
So the fundamental challenge is that most people are not prepared for what is going to happen in the next decade, specifically in the rise of automation of intelligent processing by machines. So traditionally, if you think of the factory floor where they've been automating for the last 30 or 40 years, they've got that down today. But with the new machine learning algorithms and other capabilities that are coming online, higher order decision processes are becoming outsourced. So they have lawyers, for example, who are actually AIs. They take care of routine things like traffic tickets and small violations.
I think I don't know about any other legal offices, but I think like LegalZoom. I could be wrong. So they're not a sponsor. I'm not pushing their service. Although full disclosure, I have their service actually. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of their paralegal stuff is handled by a machine. I wouldn't be surprised.
Absolutely, and things like ordering of a pricing, managing projects are all moving towards an automated approach where things like accountants and program managers and the bulk of basically high wealth or high income work is going to be automated in some shape or form, and that people are only going to be handling exceptions, which puts a tremendous amount of people out of work.
Okay, I agree with you. On this podcast, we've had several discussions about automation specifically. So then my question for you is, okay, remember, we have a couple of new people in the audience. If they're just now starting out on a career, what do you advise for them on in an industry that might be automated 80, 90, 95, 95, 99%?
Cybersecurity is one of those areas where automation is here.
Shh, don't say that. Everybody's going to get offended and mad. I agree, though.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't say it, but it's true because the vast majority of security jobs are, how can I say, compliance oriented, which means that you go through and check the box, make sure the paperwork's correct.
Right.
You're not actually doing something outside of a set of boundaries. You're actually performing within the boundaries, and that's a perfect candidate for automation. And the DARPA Grand Challenge in 2016 at DEF CON showed that these automated systems were actually quite efficient at it.
And fast.
And fast.
Like ridiculously fast.
And they don't take breaks, and they don't serve porn and all that kind of stuff.
Neither do I, community Mike. Neither do I. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I totally do.
So
go ahead.
that's kind of a long way around to say that the preparations that most people have taken over the last 40 years in school were much more focused on producing people who could do this mid-level work, whether they be accountants or lawyers or managers, software developers, security.
You're talking about the school institutions building these types of people.
And they equip them for that type of job. The challenge is those jobs are going away, and there is literally no replacement. And typical replacements of going out and becoming an Uber driver or food delivery or working at fast food, they're being automated out also. So there literally will be no place for these folks who have traditionally formed the middle class to go. And they don't have the skills to learn how to do something else. They will try to do what they're doing harder or cheaper or better.
Or elsewhere, or
Yeah, they'll try to move, but net sum, they're going to replace so many jobs that fundamentally what you need to do today is either get into an area that is so new that it can't be automated. Quantum electronics, quantum communications, nanotechnology, biotech.
right now somebody's made this argument before that you have to get into an area that can't be automated quickly.
Yes.
But then, like, as an example, let's take data science.
Mhm.
That's been automated in less than how many years?
Data science became a thing in 2013, and so within 7 years it was automated.
Right. So, like,
So
to advise somebody to go into data science because it hasn't been automated yet.
But you have to realize that your career will be no more than 3 or 4 years.
Right. It's no
Because
longer a 20-year process.
Exactly. So you need to be flexible in implementing your career choices over time. Or you have to get yourself in a position where they can't automate it somehow. For example, touch labor for networks is unlikely to be automated. Now, it's not a high value activity, so you're going to have to adjust your expectations of income, because a lot of the things that you pay good money for in networking are being automated out of existence through software, infrastructure as code and deployment.
Software-defined networking.
Right.
Yeah.
So the push for you as an individual is to develop the ability to quickly adapt and change and then roll things out.
Right. Thank you for that input. Let's go ahead with one more comment if you have any, and then we can move on to not a different subject necessarily, but something similar but not. Community mic.
Me again.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to go ahead and just, in a large way, disagree, actually.
Ooh, yay, debate. Go ahead.
Now, this is a little bit of a personal story, but my thing is, I used to be in information security, and I used to be, big iron, networking, everything else. I worked at Jet Propulsion Lab, did, high-end computing stuff, support, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Then I got tired of it. I'm in manufacturing now.
Like, you just got bored, or?
I pretty much got bored and saw that there was no future in it. So, to an extent, and this is because part of the reason is because I was doing a lot of administrative work. So it's like big Unix systems, you need to do some of that. It's like figure out why the mail keeps running long or something like that. Make sure the backup keeps running.
Right.
But the thing about it is, like, how much time does somebody spend, like, doing Windows administration?
Not a lot, because they're scripted. It's scripted.
It's
PowerShell, right, etc.
And even then, like, how much does anybody actually extract enjoyment from Windows administration?
Well, I think while there are maybe a lot of people who want to find a job that they feel fulfilled in, of course, I think there are a lot of people in general, and Doxy might agree with me here. You're doing it to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally motivation. My thing was is that I couldn't decide who worked for who, whether I worked for the computer or whether the computer worked for me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is the other thing to remember. 10 years ago, what else was happening? That was the Great Recession.
Great Recession. Let's see, smartphones were becoming like a really mainstream thing.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it was like it was the Great Recession. Everybody was hiring.
Yeah.
I found myself without a job. I'm like, hey, I got a job.
Now you're happier in manufacturing now, right?
Oh, I love it. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm covered in plastic and MDF.
Oh, I don't care about that, but I mean,
everything else. But so it's like, yeah, I've got a solid background in automation. The thing about it is that you can automate things to a certain point, but there's certain things you just can't automate the same way. Once again, I'm a little bit weird in that I'm skilled labor, I'm a skilled machinist for 20 years. SolidWorks, I can code, I can do all these other things. I can run the automation systems. Hell, I can design the automation systems. And I design automation systems for explosives.
fair. I'm not gonna mess with you. You might be demolition man.
So yeah. But that's the thing.
I'm kidding.
These automation systems that everybody talks about, where it's like, oh, well, we need an AI to control the thing that does like this, and it's like, nobody needs AI to produce pencil erasers.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need AI to put together big pens.
Mm-hmm.
you need machines. You need something to put the parts in the machine. So you do need some labor. You probably at some level need somebody to design the pen. You probably need, at some level there's a lot of other steps in there where there is labor. What is being automated away? We talk about, middleman. There's no need to have a middleman.
Yes, to that point, I would agree with you. I think the executives have enough power to not vote for their job specifically to be automated, and then you have the worker who's not middle management, like you were saying.
But the thing about it is that you look at, historically what middle management was, and you had a lot of people who shuffle paper around.
Yes.
You wouldn't have that many people who really did all the work. The quote unquote the Indians. So you'd get companies that tend to.
Wait, I've never heard that before. The Indians?
You've never heard that before?
No.
That's saying that man, this department's a little.
By the way, you did use air quotes, so it's not racist.
I'm not talking.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Indians and chiefs.
Yes. No, I understand where this is coming from.
This department is a little chief heavy. There's a lot of chiefs here, but Indians. What the hell are these people managing? So that's kind of one of those things. And this is, we talked about 10, 20 years ago in IT, it's like, there were a lot of departments where it's like, man, you got 10 guys managing 2.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Right.
Like, draw me an org chart of this. How does this work?
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of one of the things. And it's like, if that gets automated away, that means those 2 guys don't have to listen to those 10 assholes telling them what to do. So they can get back to work.
I agree with you, but for the record, my bosses are totally not assholes.
So the thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're one of those 2 guys, because those guys are probably going to get paid very well because they're skilled labor.
Fair. That is very fair.
And that's something that automation, probably will not replace at all in our lifetime.
Cool. And thank you for your input on that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So. Okay, so I know we kind of went on a little bit on a tangent there, but let's bring it back to what the original question is, which is, how do I get started? That was, I believe, that was the original question, which is, how do I get started in InfoSec or cybersecurity or whatever? And I will say, this is definitely a cliche, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to get started or to get going, right? My path might be different from your path or your path or your path, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll tell you what worked for me. Okay. I read a lot of books, and I read a lot of history books. History books, like for instance, right now I'm in the middle of finishing the book about the cult of the dead cow. I read The Masters of Deception. I've read a lot of Kevin Mitnick's books. And these are just history books that kind of got me in the mindset of, okay, maybe how is this person thinking when they carried out the hack? Or how is this person thinking when they developed this software? Okay, now that I have a mindset, let me read into that a little bit. And then I went with the technical books. Again, this is what worked for me. It could be completely different for everybody else. So then you read the technical books. Like maybe if you are getting into web design, you read web design, or you go to a web design meetup, or you do, again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If this works for you, that's great. If it doesn't work for you, you'll find something else. Another thing that worked for me is just I read a lot of magazines, specifically 2600, which, by the way, I meant to bring that out there. I don't think I promoted them last time I was here. But the winter issue is almost out. I'm still reading the fall issue. The winter issue will be coming out in a couple of weeks. My point being is that is another resource of connecting with hackers and sharing ideas. And I think that's actually a very important part, right? Because we're all here at this hackerspace at SYN Shop for a reason. What's that reason? Discuss our projects, share our ideas, teach a class, do a podcast, right? Am I right? Am I not right? So these are all different ways that we have come to kind of pull all of this information together. It's a way that we've kind of put it together. It's a way that we can share it all, and it's a way that I think makes grabbing information not only easy, because the internet has kind of made grabbing information easy, but to be in a hackerspace and to read these books that are written by other hackers, it's made information gathering fun and interesting, more so than maybe a Google search could do for you. In fact, okay, this is going to be a small tangent, but it's kind of related. My pet peeve and hopefully I get a couple of nods here in the audience. My pet peeve is when I ask you a fucking question and you say, Google it. Now, don't get me wrong. I know I can fucking Google the answer, okay? But I'm asking you because maybe I want to have that discussion with you. Because maybe I want to have your insight. That's something that I can't get from Google, okay? DuckDuckGo will give me your opinion. My point is, when I get that, okay, so you know what? I'll give Doxy some credit here. Only a little bit of credit because he's not here right now. But Doxy's pet peeve, like his biggest pet peeve aside from cheese, is when somebody tells him RTFM, read the fucking manual, right? My biggest pet peeve is, I guess kind of equivalent, is when somebody says, oh, just Google it. I fucking hate that answer because I know how to Google. I know how to use Google. My Google flu skills are pretty good. They're pretty good. They're pretty great, actually. They're great. Absolutely great. But when I ask you something, it's because I want your opinion. I want your input. I want your stance on things. From hacker to hacker, right? So, as a community, let's fucking stop saying, oh, just Google it. Because, of course, that's not the fucking reason I asked you the goddamn question. As you can tell, the whiskey makes me a little bit more sweary, not more violent, just a little bit more sweary. Okay, so I believe we may have finally answered that question, only 45 minutes in. So there are many paths to success here. Read, explore, be curious. I think to maybe sum it all up, be curious, try things, break things. You'll fix it or you won't, but you'll learn. And you know, you'll figure it out. All of us have figured it out. I'm not saying that you don't need to do it without a mentor, but fucking try things. You know, figure it out, and there will be people along the way to help you. For instance, this podcast. Or this hackerspace. We're here to help. We're here to guide. We're here to offer advice. And maybe now after today, we won't fucking say Google it. Or maybe somebody will. I don't know. There's just to annoy you now because they know your pet peeve. And I had another question that I wanted to ask, but maybe I forgot it. Just maybe I forgot it. Only maybe. Okay. Now, the last time that I was here in a solo show, for Star Wars reference, this is the Chen Solo episode. Yeah, I'm going to beat that joke into the ground. But the last time I was here by myself, I didn't want to do the lightning round, but apparently everybody wanted me to do my own tweet's length of an opinion. Thoughts? Lightning round? I got a couple of nods. Shout out? What shout out? Oh, you like that? Oh, everybody likes to say, see, I knew Doxy was wrong. No. I'm only saying that because he can't defend himself. I'll tell you what. Why don't we do both? Only because I have the hackernews.com loaded up and queued. So for those of you who do not know, we're going to go to thehackernews.com and give our tweet's length of an opinion. And when I say we, I really mean me today. But I'm gonna give my tweet's length of an opinion on all of these lovely articles that I see here. Some in double vision. We'll see how well I can read. Slightly buzzed, only slightly. I'm gonna give my tweet's length of an opinion, and then I'll move on. And then after that, we'll do the whole shout out thing because I didn't know that people actually like that one. I mean, I knew it because I came up with it and it's a great idea, but I'm glad to see some validation here. All right. So first article, Apple opens its invite-only bug bounty program to all researchers. I guess it's about time. I didn't even know that their bug bounty program was closed to invite-only, so that's kind of interesting. I think a lot more people will now be able to hack and explore and report, right? All right, next one. Let's see. Hackers stole customers' payment card details from over 700 Wawa stores. I heard about this. I believe do we have Wawas in Vegas?
No, they're in like
Florida. Okay, so they're like what, like back east, right? Yeah. Oh, so we have Wawas out there. So 700 stores vulnerable. Look, my opinion here is that hashtag every company is vulnerable. It's not a question of if you will get breached, but when. So just be prepared for it. Sorry, my bad. You got opinions, but this is the lightning round. This is the lightning round.
Go for it.
All right, cool. Next one. Oh, by the way, this one isn't WordPress. Let's see. Drupal. Drupal warns web admins to update their CMS software to patch critical flaw. So at least WordPress wasn't in the news this week. Which, by the way, side note, I use WordPress. I don't have a lot of plugins on it, so that's it's actually the core is actually fairly secure. It's when you add plugins from people who don't know how to fuck to code securely. That's when you get fucked. Anyway, my opinion. All right, next one. Top 5 essential. That is definitely an ad, but let's go ahead and read it anyway. Top 5 essential features of effective cybersecurity for web applications. I guess you could read it, and if you're a web application expert, you can comment on that, because I, quite frankly, don't give a shit. All right, next one. British hacker accused of blackmailing healthcare firms extradited to the U.S. I mean, if you're blackmailing, that's kind of fucked up, so maybe you deserve it. I don't know. I have this, yeah, bummer, but I have this weird, I don't want to say infatuation, but I mean, like, look, if you deserve it, if you've been blackmailing people, I mean, fuck it. Go to jail. I don't know. Maybe my patience is running thin on whiskey. Okay, next one. Let's see. Google offers financial support to open source projects for cybersecurity. So I don't know. I'll have to probably read into this article a little bit, but I'm guessing like you have some sort of open source project, and Google will buy you out right away, and then kill your project, because that's exactly what they do. Yep, exactly. That's like a and that's the decade, right? So the decade of Microsoft was like in the 90s, I would say, right? Now the decade of Google is like, would you say this decade is? Maybe we can save that for next week. But was this the decade of Google?
Probably.
I think the early 2000s, like 2000, 2010, I think that was Apple's decade, because they came out with the smartphone and the iPod and the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Steve Jobs is still alive. They're kind of lost without him, in my opinion. Yes, they became a viable company again. And so we'll see who, as far as a corporation, we'll see which corporation is on top in the 2020s. And we'll talk more about that next week, when hopefully I have a panel with me. All right, next. Let's see. LifeLabs paid hackers to recover stolen medical data of 15 million Canadians. So I'm not Canadian, but for some reason, I still feel vulnerable. Yeah, it's what's all that about? That's a very good question. Oh, sorry, eh? All right, last one, and then we'll go on to the other thing. Okay, so 14 ways. Whenever there's a number in the article, you just know it's clickbait. But fuck it, we'll go through it. 14 ways to evade botnet malware attacks on your computer. I'm not going to open this article, but how many? You know what? This is going to be a perfect transition. So the article says, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? Welcome to the end of the show." All right. So the question is, or the article is, 14 ways to evade botnet malware attacks on your computer. Now, I won't give an opinion on this, because another thing that we've started to do at the end of the show is we've had what we call the shout out, or what we now call the shout out. Can any of you guys guess what the malware evasion tactics might be? No, just shout it out. Don't raise your hand.
Shut down your computer.
Shut down your computer. Okay,
Disconnect from the internet.
Well, would disconnecting your computer, or would disconnecting your internet connection be the same as shutting down your computer? Okay, so it's different. Okay, so we have disconnect from the internet and shut down your computer. That's 2. I'm not going to ask for all 14. But no, I'm not asking for all 14. But what else do we have? Remember, this is malware evasion techniques. Encrypt your data before the crypto locker gets you, and it'll still encrypt anyway. No? No?
Go to
Okay, I was wrong on that one. Yes, don't go to unsafe sites. Pornhub is pretty safe.
Links and emails.
Phishing attacks, of course. Don't click on emails and shit that you don't recognize. This is, well, I mean, this should be common knowledge. I guess it's not. Because obviously there's still attacks here. Let's go. 2 more. 2 more. 2 more.
Don't install software.
Don't install
unknown software.
Don't install unknown software, whether by choice or not. Last one.
Don't put the thumb drive you found in the parking
Yes,
lot
very
in your
good.
computer.
Very good.
Pentagon, I'm looking at you.
Yes. Do not plug in a thumb drive that you found in the parking lot that looks very shiny and enticing. Obviously, that is a great malware. Yes, that is a great anti-malware technique there.
Don't let some suspicious dude like me come plug a thumb drive in your
Sir, I do believe you are not suspicious, but that's just my own opinion. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the lightning round and the shout out, which now you know brings us to the end of the show. We have run out of time. I think I could keep talking for another hour. What do you guys think? I'm not going to.
Do it.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. But I
Prove it.
think well, okay, look. We always say that we've run out of time, but not out of shit to say. I could prove it. I don't think I will, because I think there are people in the live stream like, holy shit, it's like 2 hours of Chen Solo. Go watch Star Wars, because I'm not in it.
It was good.
Yeah, okay, great. We have a confirmation from the audience that it was good. All right, so we've run out of time, but never out of shit to say. So, like always, or at least not like the last 2 weeks, join us again next week, because we will be here, or at least I will be here. So if you like the show, which I hope you did. Chen Solo 3. Yeah, I'll be here. I promise I'll be here. But join us again next week, 7:30 p.m., like every Friday night at the SYN Shop. The address is 1075 American Pacific Drive, Suite C in Henderson, Nevada. We are still the Las Vegas Valley hackerspace. Don't worry about what Crux might tell you later. Go to synshop.org for information on the shop. Remember to go to meetup.com/synshop. That's SYNSHOP. And for information on us as a podcast, go to Greynoise, GREYNOI.SE. We were British when we thought about the name, so that's why it's with the E and not the A. My name is Master Chen, and you've been listening to Greynoise. Good night, everybody.